leading without opposition. Read of a story of a gentleman who was lost in a hot air balloon. He had an appointment to meet a friend, and he was already 1 hour late. Looking beneath him, he noticed a woman and shouted, "Where am I? Seems I am lost." And she looked at him and said, "Sir, I think you're approximately 36.7 degrees east and about 1.3 degrees south." That's approximately the location of Nairobi. You're in a hot air balloon, approximately 30 feet above the ground. The balloonist looked at the woman and said, "Woman, I suspect you must be an engineer." And she replied, "Yes, I am. How did you know?" And the balloonist replied, "I think you must have given me the correct locus of where I am, but your information has not helped me at all. As a matter of fact, you have even delayed my mission. You've wasted my time." And she looked at the balloonist and said, "Sir, you must be in management." And he replied, "Yes, I am. How did you know that?" "Oh man, you've risen so high through a large quantity of hot air. You neither know where you're coming from nor where you're going. You've made promises that you cannot keep, and you expect people beneath you to solve your problems. You're in the same position you were before you met me, and somehow now it's my fault." We call that management. I don't know whether you've gone through that with the managers above you, those at your level, and those beneath you. But my focus today is on leadership because I'm a firm believer each one of us was created to be a leader, and I'll try to persuade so in the next few moments. If you do not rise up to your leadership calling, you will always serve other people's initiatives, and your children's children will serve other people's initiative. But deep down your heart, in your DNA, was a leader created that needs to be unleashed. And at this stage, I want to take a journey with you by looking at 10 leadership approaches, just to check what you could be using in the marketplace. The first leadership approach is known as Great Man Leadership Approach. Great Man Leadership Approach. In this approach, people are convinced that leaders are born. You either have it or you don't. It condemns people to fate. You're either born a leader or not. So then people believe leaders have some special attributes that cannot be acquired. And the challenge with this leadership approach, then people who come from this school of thought never attempt to develop other leaders. And if you come from that school of thought, I want to suggest to you today, leadership is not what you leave behind, but who you leave behind. I've seen great men larger than life, and the moment they die, their own children destroy their inheritance because no one else could have done it. They never even revealed their secrets in business or any other form of leadership. And I suggest to you today, it is the lowest form of leadership. The second leadership approach, I'm going to call it today trait leadership approach. T-R-A-I-T. Trait leadership approach. This is a leadership approach that believes that leaders have special characteristics. And so people try to analyze the features and the characteristics that leaders have in common. And the challenge with this is that a lot of subordinates and followers attempt to copy everything that the leader does. It produces photocopies of men. It destroys ingenuity. I want to suggest today that while leaders learn from others, they never become them. Leadership approach number 3. Skills leadership approach. Skills leadership approach. This is more progressive than the first two because it suggests that there are some leadership skills that can be acquired. And if you acquire them, everyone can become a leader. And usually there are 3 types of skills that are acquired. We have what we call technical skills, people skills, and conceptual skills. Let me say that one more time. We have technical skills. For example, you could be an accountant, you could be an actuary, you could be a doctor, an architect, a lawyer. These are technical skills. Then we have people skills, the art of dealing with people, the ability to handle people. And then we have conceptual skills, your problem-solving skills, your ability to strategize and to anticipate and solve problems long before they occur. Now, most organizations that believe and adopt skills leadership approach normally concentrate in developing a specific leader or a certain management level and ignore the rest. So they end up creating a cult in a certain leader. And I don't know whether you have noticed in your organization, some leaders will never even go on leave, especially people from procurement. They will even lock or carry the books away. They're even proud of saying, when I leave, they can't do anything. They never perform when I'm not there. What a tragic statement from a leader. You see, while I believe leaders must continue to learn, the cup of knowledge for leaders never fails. Leaders never graduate from learning. You must also make yourself increasingly unnecessary and develop the people around you. You've got to seek to empower, not to develop power around you. Seek to empower the other people and develop people around you, not just yourself. Leadership approach number 4. It is called styles leadership approach. Styles leadership approach. Under this approach, people believe that the success of a leader depends on the style of his leadership. The effectiveness of the leader is dependent on the leadership style. And usually there are 3 types of leadership styles. The first one is autocratic and demanding. The second one is democratic and participatory. And the third one is called laissez-faire. Let people alone. Let people decide what they want to do. And sometimes each of these styles work depending on who you're guiding. If he's a new employee in the organization, you'll find yourself more autocratic and giving orders. If it is people at your level, you'll find yourself more becoming participatory, or what I'm calling democratic. And if people have self-motivation, you will leave them to determine the course. You let them alone because they know what to do. But you can't do that to interns. They need to be shown the direction. Now, the challenge with this approach, it makes followers continue comparing leaders depending on their leadership approach, ignoring various dynamics like the leader's IQ, EQ, temperaments, or even the role of the followers. And usually managers who apply this leadership approach, they want to defend their positions. They are position conscious. So while managers focus on the next position, leaders focus on the next generation. Leaders focus on developing the next generation. I even want to add, while politicians focus on the next elections, leaders focus on the next generation. Leadership approach number 5. I'm going to call it situational leadership approach. Situational leadership approach. Some people believe there is no one good leadership approach that is superior to others. It depends with the situation at hand. Scholars, on the other hand, have tried to analyze the situations and categorize them into 4 clusters. And the first cluster is where you have employees or subordinates or followers with low competence but high commitment. In this situation, then you direct them, you tell them. The second scenario is whereby you have some commitment and some competence. These kind of people, you coach them. The third situation is whereby you have some commitment but high competence. These people, you involve them, you make them participate. The fourth and the most desired situation is where you have people in your organization who are highly committed and highly gifted and skilled. They have the competence and they're committed. In this case, you delegate and allow them to run the show. But there's a challenge with this approach. It assumes that the 4 situations are static and you can't alter them. And I want to suggest tonight that true leaders do not pursue or seek followers. Followers are attracted by true leaders. In other words, you don't pursue success. Success pursues you. People can see whether you've got it and they will follow you. Leadership approach number 6. Contingency leadership approach. Contingency leadership approach. This is a theory that suggests that literally it is not about the leader, but the organizational context. So the success of the leader is a factor of the organizational environment. So under this theory, you try to change the leader or to change the leader. I know you're lost. Now you're in pretense. You're pretending to understand. Can I repeat? You either change the leader or change the leader. The first change is to swap or to substitute. The second change deals with molding or refining the leader. Did I communicate? Let me try one more time. I either change the leader and bring the person who fits into this organizational context, or I work on building the leader. Have I communicated? Now, the greatest challenge with this approach is that people often embark on head hunting and poaching leaders rather than developing them. And if you come from that school of thought, hear my voice tonight, your leadership will never be judged by the people you treat, but by the people you develop. You will never be measured by the leaders you treat, but the leaders you manage to develop from scratch. Leadership approach number 7. Transactional leadership approach. Transactional leadership approach. Under this approach, the leader engages with the follower on a transitory, not emotional approach. That means it's work-related. It's about efficiency decisions. It's about cost-cutting, enhancing productivity. And it's a reward for performance and a punishment for non-compliance and non-performance. Creativity, innovativeness is not encouraged under this approach. Ingenuity is destroyed. You're supposed to fit into the rules and procedures of the organization. Leaders who come from this approach tend to believe that managers and their subordinates are not naturally motivated. So they come up with a reinforcement scheme. And this works for a while, so long as the carrot is long enough and sweet enough. External motivation collapses in the long haul because you've got to keep on increasing the bait. And that's why we want to propose today about internal motivation. In other words, reinforcement should never substitute coaching. Coaching is the highest level of leadership, such that people don't follow you because they have to. They follow you because they want to. Leadership approach number 8. I'm going to call it tonight Transformational Leadership Approach. Transformational Leadership Approach. Now, you will understand that this is a high-ed leadership approach. This is a leader who is looking at life from a situation whereby we can mutually benefit each other with my followers and carry each other to higher levels of morality and motivation. A transformational leader is a secure leader who recognizes he has a shelf life, who recognizes the organization is an idea that will outlive him. So he tries to buy into commitment rather than work through incentives. So the leader pours into these people and sells the organizational vision. So they buy the vision of the organization rather than following incentives. So this is a leader who does not go for threats or rewards. He sells the idea that the organization is bigger than any of us. Leadership approach number 9. Member exchange leadership approach. Member exchange leadership approach. Under this approach, the leader tries to get an in-group, a small group of trusted assistants, lieutenants, and advisors next to him. He spends his time mentoring a small class of people who in turn develop the rest. So the in-group becomes very loyal to the leader, and they pour their lives to him. Often than not, it works very well as long as the leader is secure. Regrettably, there are many insecure leaders who try this approach, and the first thing they do is to cut the horns of the in-group because they tend to outgrow them. The next thing they make is everyone else in the out-group, they feel insecure, and their motivation levels are low. They have no morale. So there is a leadership approach that only works with people who are secure, who can pour themselves into a small group that in turn influences the rest of the organization. Number 10 and the last one. Servanthood leadership approach. Servanthood leadership approach. You must be suspecting that the reason I wanted to share with this at the very last point, it is the highest level of leadership. Servant leaders are so secure, they want the followers to outshine them. Servanthood leadership is based on love and compassion, a genuine, true love for the people you serve. In turn, the leader receives reciprocal service from the followers, high performance, and they pour themselves, they lay down their lives on his behalf. How do you judge whether someone is a servant leader or not? The difference is simple. In servanthood leadership, you are not judged by how many people serve you, but by how many people you serve. The true mark of servanthood leadership is mentorship. And I want to demonstrate servanthood leadership because this is my focus tonight. And I'll ask Rastas to come right here, perhaps with two other men. And I just want to illustrate, maybe I could use this mic as a baton. I want to suggest today that servanthood leadership is like a relay race. And we are going to run with these guys. I'm beginning the race. You set? Let's do this race. I'm the first guy to start the game. And I want to pass on the baton to my follower. What do you notice about this? Is he looking behind? No. He's looking forward. Because in servanthood leadership, the person picking the baton is younger and fresher, has more fresh ideas than the person passing on the baton. Then he passes on the baton. But you know, some guys refuse to pass on the baton. Just come a moment, Rastas, before you pass it on. There are some people who refuse to pass on the baton. They don't believe in succession planning. And their empire dies the day they die. Is that familiar? The only way for an organization to outlive you is by you releasing it. Yes, you started the organization, you started the idea, but the only space for this thing to outgrow you is to release it. Because by the time I'm giving the baton, I'm already tired and exhausted. Men, pass it on. Don't refuse to pass on the baton. Dominic, he's the last one. And I hope you're the youngest of the four. Let me ask you a question. Who won the game? That's the difference. Because when you're sprinting, there's one winner. It's a winner take it all. The stakes are high. In a relay race, everyone wins the race. No one takes the glory home. That's why you find in sprinting, usually there are a lot of times there are false starts because the athletes are nervous. But people are relaxed in a relay race because it's not about me, it's about the team. Thank you very much. Have I communicated? Thank you. It's about the team. It's about mentorship. And tonight, I want to dissect servanthood leadership by taking you through the 3 dimensions of servanthood leadership. The 3 dimensions of servanthood leadership. And I sense in my spirit, there's a revolutionary who's been sitting on his gift. And as I share this message, this will upset your equilibrium. This message could be your tipping point. There could be someone listening to my voice tonight who after this message is going to release the leader she is, the leader he is, and disrupt an entire industry and redefine lifestyles. You see, it is not the strongest species that survive, but the most adaptive and responsive to change. We are in the information era, the knowledge age. Who is going to lead in the 21st century? Because anyone who is attempting to use the same practices, the bossy attitude we used in the past era is going to fail in this century and in this millennium. You see, in the jungle, I like watching movies, I like going to the bush about animals. And one of the things I've realized, during the mating season, the weak males are eliminated or overpowered or kicked away so that they don't pass on weakness. Nature has a way of rejecting weakness. Yes, the weak freak and true leaders show up. I recognize none of us is indispensable, but it's also true some leaders are irreplaceable. They happen once in a lifetime. Could you be that irreplaceable leader who is going to change the paradigms in East Africa? If you're that person, I want to share with you the 3 dimensions of servanthood leadership. Dimension number 1, personal leadership. Personal leadership. This dimension suggests you can't lead others unless and until you learn how to lead yourself. Do not try to understand others before you understand yourself. If you do not know who you are, you don't know who to pick as a friend, which career to pursue, what choices to make, what values to embrace. At the personal leadership dimension, I want to share with you tonight some 3 C's. And I would like you, as much as you're writing on that piece of paper and book, and I can see you are all active writing, I'd like you to put the 3 C's I'm going to share with you right in your spirit. The first C about personal leadership, I'm going to call it today character. Character. To help us process my message, I'll pull an example of one of the best characters the world has ever known, Billy Graham. Since 12th of April 1945, when Harry S. Truman was inaugurated as the president of the U.S., every single other president of the U.S. made Billy Graham his pastor. President Harry S. Truman himself said concerning Billy's character that this man lives by the Sermon on the Mount. His successor, President Dwight Eisenhower, said that Billy is one of the best ambassadors America has ever had, although Billy himself says he's an ambassador of heaven. His successor, President John F. Kennedy, 4 days to his inauguration, invited Billy Graham at Palm Beach, where they spent an entire day praying for the nation together. His successor, President Lyndon Johnson, invited Billy Graham in excess of 20 times in the White House and several times in their family ranch. Every time Billy Graham would say, "Let us pray," the president would go on his knees in honor of God's name. The man who took after him, President Richard M. Nixon, said that he met Billy in the 1950s. In fact, when President Nixon was hit by the Watergate scandal, he didn't want Billy Graham to be tarred by the scandal, and he asked his staff not to allow Billy to come during that menace. Imagine a president trying to protect a preacher's character. The man who took after him, President Gerald Ford, he said that the visits of Billy Graham in the White House were get-together of old friends. They had no single political, economic, or other benefits. After that came President Jimmy Carter, and he said that they met together when he was governor of Georgia, and Billy visited him in the governor's mansion. And he said his character is beyond reproach, it's beyond suspicion. Afterwards came President Ronald Reagan, who met Billy 1 year after he married his wife Nancy. On the attempted assassination on the life of President Ronald Reagan, 30th of March, 1981, Billy flew to the White House to pray with and console Mrs. Nancy Reagan. After that came President George H. Bush. And Billy says that this is the president he found easiest to share spiritual matters with. On the eve of the first Gulf War, 17th of January 1991, Billy was there with George and Barbara Bush praying for the nation, praying with them. After that came President Bill Clinton, who met Billy Graham in Little Rock crusades when he was a little boy at the age of 12. And Bill Clinton later said he realized in Billy's crusades, people were never segregated all along on racial ground, even when racism was at its peak at the United States. He never segregated whether a president was a Democrat or a Republican. And for that cause, he decided to make him his personal pastor. After that came George W. Bush, who says that he met Billy Graham long before he was president in 1985 at Main Beach. That's about northeast of the U.S. And that was the turning point in his spiritual life. After him came the incumbent, President Barack Obama, who went a step further in April 2010 and visited an aging Billy Graham, who is currently 97 years of age. He visited him in his own Montreat home, North Carolina, prayed with him, and sought for spiritual guidance. If you are following what I was saying, I described all the U.S. presidents from 1945 to 2016, and all of them chose Billy Graham to be their pastor. At the meantime, some of our Kenyan pastors, when they go to State House, they go there looking for alms, begging for money. When shall men of character rise up? And you know, character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the emotion of the moment is past. Let me say that one more time. Character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the emotion at which that decision was made is past. You see, while motivation gets us going, character keeps us going. You see, your reputation is fragile. It's reconstructing a building. It will take you many years to put up a building, but just a few minutes to utterly ruin it. Guard your reputation with your life. But while reputation is what others think about you, character is who you truly are. Character is what you do when you think no one is watching you. You see, the force of character is cumulative. Character is the composite of our daily habits. Because they are consistent, unconscious patterns, they daily express our character. Let me suggest tonight, while men of genius are admired, men of wealth are envied, men of power are feared, only men of character are trusted. While beauty catches the eye, character catches the heart. Attention without preparation leads to self-destruction. Has your gift taken you to places where your character cannot keep you? I've seen celebs, especially in the music industry, the media industry, shine one day and the next moment They are totally ruined because they were not prepared to handle the glory. You see, while your gifts will take you to the public limelight, your character will anchor your foundation. Your character will be your check and balance. You see, talents are gifts, but character is not something given to us. It is something we deliberately develop, piecemeal, block by block. It is not a gift. It's a deliberate, conscious effort. You've got to plan to be a man or a woman of character. It is President Thomas Jefferson who prayed, "Oh God, grant us that our principal men will be men of principle." Character is what remains out of a man when all is said and done, because you never rise above your character. Are you a man or a woman of character? Do you have a price tag? Can you resist the highest bidder? The second C I want to share with you. Remember I said I want to share 3 C's at the personal leadership. Are you with me? The second C I'm going to call it composure. Composure. On 15th of January, the year 2009, US Airways Airbus A320-214 at exactly 3:27 p.m. left LaGuardia Airport, New York. About 3 minutes into the flight, it hit a flock of Canadian geese, causing both engines to lose power. The passengers heard a loud bang in the engines, then fumes from the exhaust, then total silence. 57-year-old Chesley Sullenberger, the captain commanding that aircraft, resorted to an emergency but safe landing or gliding of the plane into the Hudson River. And about 6 minutes later, the plane landed in the Hudson. The captain calmly opened the cockpit door and gave the evacuation order. And the crew went and guided the passengers how to evacuate the plane. All of them, 155 passengers on board, survived, including one on a wheelchair. 2 of them required overnight hospitalization, but none of them sustained major injuries. Later on, they were interviewed, and this is what they said. What kept their sanity was the composure of the captain. The National Transportation Authority Board later awarded the entire crew what they call the Master's Medal of the Air Pilots and Air Navigators Guild. And then this is now a feat popularly known as the Miracle of the Hudson. Chances are high many of you have heard or read about it. But I have thought about it later on. It dawned on me how many lives we lose on our roads or living behind the wheel of life because a leader lost his composure. I want to suggest tonight, a leader must never lose their cool under pressure. In fact, leadership is your ability to handle challenges. Often than not, I hear people say, "I can't take it anymore." What you don't realize you're saying is that you don't want leadership. Even from a corporate organization perspective, when you're being promoted from one level to another and paid much more than the others, you are paid to deal with higher challenges. They actually pay you for more complicated problems. And the moment you say you don't want problems, basically what you're saying, you don't want promotion. Because promotion is a factor of your ability to handle pain. There is no leadership without challenges. Every leader must be able to deal with the turbulences of the commoner and the storms of the mighty. And the reality is, sometimes in leadership, you'll be analyzed and scandalized by the people you serve. You get a backlash from the people you poured your lives to them, But you must never stoop low to their level. There are times I post articles on FB. Over 90%, I get nice compliments. But almost every time I post, I get someone who is very upset with our message. And I always say, you need to treat criticism as feedback. I know for a fact, if someone has been living in the dark for too long, and you switch on the light immediately, the eyes hurt. Does that make sense? So they prefer their darkness. It's familiar ground. So I don't want to get into their level. The moment you get so tempted to be losing your cool like the rest, you lose your leadership. Whenever interviews are being done, I want you to remember this. Everyone has qualified to be shortlisted. In fact, the line between who is picked and who is not going to be picked, even to be the next Chief Justice in Kenya, the main difference is your ability to handle pressure, to maintain your cool. Sometimes it gets crazy. I followed a story of a man I deeply love and respect. Pastor Rick Warren lost his son to suicide. You'd expect at such a moment for people to empathize. You'd expect some degree of humanity. But all he got from social media is that, why didn't you teach your son what you teach us about composure? That's the public for you. Despite his divinity, the Lord Jesus suffered contempt, derision, disdain, mockery, and ridicule from mere mortals. When you go through such moments, consider him who endured such great contradiction. And never lose your cool. An isolated incident made Moses miss the promised land. An isolated incident made Nancy Baraza, our former Deputy Chief Justice, end her public life prematurely. You will be castigated by the public for the same sins they forgive the ordinary man. That's why you must maintain your cool. Sometimes you're going to launch projects that will miserably fail. But you must launch them anyhow. Regardless of the mockery you'll get from the public, you must launch them anyhow. Not every project you're going to launch is going to succeed. The good news is success reveals your failures, and every failure is less painful. You see, unfortunately, some people don't have a chance not to fail. They have to analyze the situation until they're 100% sure they're going to succeed. And the truth is, they never start anything. Because every moment you start a major project, there's a probability it is going to succeed. That means there's an odd it's not going to succeed. But you've got to do it by faith. And that's leadership. The third thing I want to discuss with you about personal leadership is called commitment. Commitment. There is a hostel somewhere midway on your way up to the peak of the Alp mountains. It's warm, it's nice, it's cool. It's a place for hikers to lodge. Now, the investors realized whenever the hikers took a moment to breathe some warm air, to sip some coffee, they get tempted to play piano and cards. They take some moment to warm up a little bit before continuing the mission. And they realize in excess of 60% of them never continue with the mission. What works are the hikers on their way down, trying to pass through the hostel and take the coffee. But those who try to pass by on their way up usually give up on the mission. You see, commitment is not a word. Commitment is an act. You are defined by your commitments. No one is naturally great. We are products of what we commit to. You are defined by your commitments. Commitments may build or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. I repeat, no one is naturally great. We are products of what we commit to. What are you committing yourself to? Italian Renaissance, Michelangelo's art and sculptures and architecture make people tear. The man died 1564. His influence lives on. His work lives on. Can you put your signature against your work? Whenever I'm releasing articles on social media, I insist. I want them to have my signature. I want people to know I'm the one who wrote that article. Why? I'm proud of my work. I don't release it to the world unless I'm very sure I'm going to influence someone. And I want to suggest to you today, don't release it to the world until it is world class. Because the world buys only the very best. Don't agree to play second violin. There is no space for second best. Be a merchant of wow. Leave people with a pleasant, memorable experience. Leave them longing for more, wondering where you've been all these years. That's leadership. You've got to commit. You see, there is some falsehood that people perform because of gifts. Undeniably, there's a place for gifts, perhaps 10%. 90% perspiration, commitment. Rise up to the occasion and commit yourself. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Ecclesiastes 9:10, one of my top 3 favorite scriptures. And this takes me to the second dimension of servanthood leadership. Dimension number 2. I'm going to call it tonight purpose leadership. Purpose leadership. I'm going to discuss some 3 Ds at the purpose leadership. 3 Ds. The first D, destiny. The first D, destiny. There's a story written in a number of management books about some fellows who are working on a building project. A new supervisor was assigned there, but the guys who were working on the bricks did not know that he was their new supervisor. He went to the first worker and asked him a very simple question: what are you doing? And the first worker was disturbed by that question. He rudely spoke to the supervisor. What? Don't you have eyes? Can't you see I'm working on bricks at a scorching sun? The heat is intense, but it's required of me to complete my quota. A little bit discouraged, he decided to check whether this attitude is across board. So he went to the second worker and asked him the same question: what are you doing? And the second worker said, well, I'm working on some bricks. And the work is tedious. Sometimes there are blisters on my hands, but it pays my bills, helps me take my children to school. A little bit encouraged, he went to the third worker, asked the same question: what are you doing? Enthusiastically, with some oomph and stamina, that worker looked at the supervisor and said, hey, I'm building a cathedral. That's the difference a vision does. The ability to see your destiny, your end product, the big picture, your end result. You see, vision is the source of all human motivation, because when there is power in the future, there is faith in the present. And when there is faith in the future, there is power in the present. When you know where your end result will be, you get energized. Vision also attracts resources. So if you're broke, you have not communicated your vision clearly. People don't give people money. People invest in a vision. If you have a business idea and nobody wants to invest in you, I want to suggest there's a likelihood you have not articulated your vision very well. As a leader, you must be able to communicate your vision. It is President Mandela who once said, when I speak to a man in a language, he understands. It goes to his head. But if I speak to a man in his own language, it goes to his heart. Have you articulated your vision until someone else has bought it? Somewhere I read. Write it down. so that whoever sees it may run with it. Habakkuk 2:2. A vision also acts as a magnet. It keeps you focused. It helps you make choices. Whether it's your list to do items, whether it's the clothes you buy and wear, whether it's the movies you watch, whether it's the music you listen, whether it's the people you rate with and hang out with, that vision defines your choices. There are things I can't do because of my vision. There are places I can't go because of my vision. There's a language I can't use because of my vision. There are mistakes that will be too costly for my vision. It keeps you focused. It becomes your check balance of what you can or cannot do. But a vision, the authenticity of a vision is tested through trying moments. It is tested during rough terrain. It is tested during tough times. That's when you quit. Last week I received a WhatsApp text from Dennis. And I didn't tell him, but I found something very interesting. He wrote to me. I don't know why he took too long to say that. Daktari, this thing is real. This thing is real. Then I said, oh God, is this the time he's realizing? But I was impressed because a vision must be tested for authenticity. I don't know what spoke to him or who spoke to him for him to come to that realization. But what it told me, and I never told him, is that everyone listening to me and watching me, they're actually testing the authenticity of the vision from a distance. And when they realize it's authentic, they come to where you are. Does that make sense? So don't be discouraged if people don't buy the vision so fast. Because people buy your why. They don't buy the what, and they don't buy the how. We can make all the mistakes in the modus operandi. But as long as you're convinced about the why we are doing it, you buy the vision. The real question is, how far can you see? What can you see? Some people see nothing and then they begin to complain. You see, the Lord called Abraham and asked him to look up. And he told him, your greatness will be as much as you can see. Your sight will be a limiting factor. He told him to number the stars. I believe they are infinite. So I do not think God was literally telling Abraham to start counting 1 star, 2 star. We are told one single galaxy, the Milky Way, has over 200 billion stars. How was Abraham going to count this when the equipment and the technology was so low? I think God was speaking about the inner eyes. If you look up Abraham, what can you see? Then he took him to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, and asked him to look now at the horizons, the horizontal dimension. How far can you see? Your lad will be as far as your sight. There are people here who see themselves leading a kiosk. And thank God is going to give you that kiosk. But there's someone listening to me here who is waiting for SGR to be completed because he's able to see himself buying a train. Amen. What can you see? We have a conversation in Sense 11 Life Club. I realize we have a number of our new friends. We call it the tree conversation. For their sake, I'm going to get into this for just a few moments. So I request every one of you, for the benefit of our new friends, look at me, each one of you. Can you see me? Now, we're in the world of imagination, and I want you to assume I'm holding an axe, and I want to cut down a tree. I'm holding an axe. I sharpen my axe, and I swing towards the tree. I hit the tree once, 2, 3, 4, 5. I keep the axe down. Today is Friday. Tomorrow is Saturday. I pick the same axe, same tree, same spot. I swing my axe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I keep the axe down. I repeat on Sunday. I repeat on Monday. Same tree, same spot. I sharpen my axe. I repeat on Wednesday, on Thursday. I'm not going to swing 15 times. I'm not going to swing 100 times. I'm only going to swing 5 times. I continue next week, but 2. Have you been blessed by this video? Please like and share with family, friends, and colleagues. Great people are either sources of light or they are mirrors that reflect the light. Be a channel of blessings to others and hit the subscribe button to enjoy thousands of my videos free of charge.